Alright, this is my presentation on the power of music throughout high intensity exercise. Some of the reasons why it's important to look at the influence of music is just as motivation in general for athletes and all gym members. Everybody is trying to achieve a specific goal, becoming better, faster, stronger. If you're able to push yourself throughout your workouts, you will be able to develop the adaptations that you want to achieve. And so whoever, especially for sports teams, if they can find the upper hand somehow on some kind of workout program involving influence in a way to make them really push themselves, they'll really give them the upper hand. So here are a couple of key words in my presentation that we need to look out for. So ergogenic, which means intended to enhance physical performance, stamina, or recovery. Blood lactate. Lactic acid is something that appears in the blood as a result of anaerobic metabolism when oxygen delivery to the tissue is insufficient to support normal metabolic demands. So as intensity increases of like running on a treadmill, you will just start to accumulate lactic acid. And norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter that activates cyclic AMP, which is a second messenger system that allows calcium ions to remain open, calcium ion channels to remain open for a longer period of time, increasing the influx of sodium ions and calcium ions, which increases the rate of action potentials, and that will result in an increase in the contraction rate. And then VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen uptake during exercise. So a couple studies that we're going to look at here. I can just adjust this really quick. We have the passive distraction on treadmill for males who are college athletes, rugby and football players who exercise at least 4 hours a day. And the passive distraction that they use in this study would be music. The participants were able to choose the music themselves, and they were also able to quit when they desired to quit, so that in a way makes it a little more challenging to analyze the results they receive, because people have different mental limits and some push through harder. They found that participants who used the music were able to reach a higher heart rate than without music. So this study really focused on the trained versus untrained aspect, that it may be beneficial for untrained athletes to really learn to push through and have that extra support in difficult times of exercise, whereas if you had a trained runner who was focused while running, like a high tempo song may disrupt their pace that they're trying to set for themselves, so that could be a little counterproductive. And this next study was looking at the effects of music on exercise, on rate of perceived exhaustion, heart rate, and autonomic nervous system. And the participants each recorded their VO2 maxes prior to the study, and they set up different intensities based on their VO2 max to see how music influenced their heart rate depending on the intensity of their run. So what they had found was that around 40% of their VO2 max was the ideal rate or ideal speed for the music influence, and past that point it just the intensity was too high for music to really benefit at all. And again, like I said, at 40%, they had a huge decrease in heart rate from with music to opposed without music. Exercise in the study was found to be more beneficial than music was, as in, like, exercise, your body just naturally has really well adaptations to when you start exercising, as like, for example, increased heart rate and vasodilation, which allows for more blood flow and oxygen delivery to tissues, and it just it starts stimulating all these physiological responses that music has no influence on. One last theory that these authors stated was the distraction effect, which spoke on the influence of stress caused by fatigue being decreased, thus increasing the comfort level of performing exercise. So that's the influence that they felt that music has at these specific levels. So if you're running at 40% of your VO2 max, you really have that, what they called it was the distraction effect. Then in this study, they looked at the influence of music tempo on heart rate and norepinephrine release, and what they had found was that increasing the tempo of music did increase your heart rate, but norepinephrine release was not, it did not change significantly enough. And if you remember from earlier in the presentation, norepinephrine is the neurotransmitter directly associated with opening the calcium ion channels, which are directly associated with the heart contractions. So if you have more action potentials, you'll have higher contraction rates, and with music they really did not find any correlation, unfortunately. In this last study, they took, again, college athletes, males only, and it was a study where they measured heart rate, blood lactate, and perceived exhaustion, and they kept them in a stable environmental chamber to keep it consistent. They kept the diet similar, and made sure that nobody had any caffeine or alcohol prior to the run. So they kept it fairly controlled, and and some of the unknown variables to the participants were distance, time, and speed. So they had no idea how far they had gone or how much time had elapsed through the study or the speed of the treadmill. All that they were focused on was just the music and the running, and it was really interesting to see the chart that they displayed in their results. It showed that in the blood lactate, the music group versus the non-music group had a 4 millimole increase in blood lactate or lactic acid, and it's just like our blood lactate, and that was just like a significant jump from the non-music group. And also looking at like the heart rate and the distance traveled and the time elapsed, like they were all increased with the music group as opposed to the non-music group. Some of these limitations are athletes have all different abilities, so some are just it's hard to control for like consistent shape that the person is in, or fitness, and it's hard to really keep that consistent for seeing how music influences you while working out. And the preference of music is another thing that's a little tricky, because some people prefer working out to motivational speeches, where others prefer high tempo like hip hop or rap, and others love just really hard rock and roll. So that really makes it a little bit challenging. If you had like a study that was conducted with all different types of music or preference, because some of these were just strictly limited to high tempo music. And another thing I had found with these studies were they were generally really small populations, especially the study looking at norepinephrine and heart rate. That one was only a few female college athletes, whereas some of these other ones had like teams and stuff. So just with the fact that it was only a couple athletes really is not a good representation of results if you limit it to only one gender and such a small sample size. It's a little tricky with the practical applications when you're speaking on music and the influence. I guess the best application would be for like moderate gym members, ones who just like to look for ways to best enhance their workouts. And if you're performing at a moderate intensity and you have that like the 40% of your VO2 max and you have that music influence, it may benefit you to really just have that music influence to really like create an ideal workouts scenario. Same thing with like training programs, like finding the best music type and genre to really influence the athletes you're training, and again, general gym members. Some future research that could be conducted here would maybe be like identical twins to really get that genetic similarity for studying their condition. Again, that would be still really challenging if like one twin was all about working out, the other one just ate donuts on a couch, but at least you'd have that genetic predisposition. Or like prolonged experiments where you really like made it controlled with a long period of keeping them isolated with a similar diet and just sleep cycles, and just really maintaining all other variables. And then again, studying specific genres to see which one people really are drawn to other than just like high tempo loud music, and also looking at just how trained populations adapt to running when they are trying to set their own pace, and like these high tempo songs may influence that. In conclusion, what I had found through all these studies is that it is best to have music playing through moderate intensity exercise, so performing at like the ideal goal is 40% of your VO2 max, and that really will maximize the music influence in a way. And in all studies they just showed slight benefits with like reaching higher heart rates and the higher like people just pushing themselves more, and like the higher lactic acid, and just overall like push themselves to further limits with the influence of music.